Hey everybody, coming at you live from out in the very extremely cold woods. Now, I'm gonna try not to dilly-dally too much on the subject, but let's talk a minute. All throughout the bushcraft camping survival books and on TV, and especially in YouTube videos, people, when they're setting up camp and they have a fire and they go to the trouble of chopping down logs, and they'll put like 4 sticks and they'll stack logs between them, and that is a fire reflector. Okay, it's also a wind deflector. It serves 2 purposes. So that's what people like to do. Okay, it's a good thing. It's a lot of extra work, you know, setting it up, but it's a good wall because when you have a fire in front of it, it reflects the heat back towards you and it blocks the wind. Okay, guys like me that I'm in and out, you know, go in one evening, camp, set up, and then I'm out the next day. That's a lot of work, you know. But and I mean, actually, you got to cut the wood for the firewood anyway. And somebody, a popular YouTuber, did like a little fort looking thing, and that's pretty cool too, because that can block all the winds from your fire and it can keep animals out. And once that YouTuber did it, everybody else copied it and started doing it. And that is a very cool idea if you've got a permanent place. Okay, people like old Dave, I ain't got a permanent place. I'm in one day and out the next. I don't own property that I can set something up on. So to get to the nuts and bolts of the video, I have created a portable wind deflector fire reflector. And today it's very extremely cold, and the wind is making it, well, it's cold. It's like, I think 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind is blowing up to 11 miles an hour. And so that makes it even colder. So what I'm going to try to do is, I don't like having fire when it's windy, but I like having one when it's cold. So I'm going to try to set this thing up and see how it works. Alright? And I found a decent spot here, and I'm going to set it up with, everything I'm using is homemade. And I've got this pack right here, and I'm going to lay it on the ground, and I'm going to show you what all's in this pack right here. Some of this stuff's necessary, some of it's not necessary. But I feel like if I had to, I could take this kit out in the woods and make it on a cold night with it. And then of course I got a small supplemental pack with a few odds and ends that I may or may not need. I don't know. But I'm wanting to test this out before me and Nick ever go camping with it. And today was the perfect day. He's not available, he's at school. But it's a cold, windy day, and I want to try this before we go out and test it, because normally when we test something like this, we'll bring sleeping bags for just in case. But this one, Nick is fired up about it and says he wants to go spend the night with no sleeping bags. And I said no. I said, we're not when it gets this cold. And you know, if it works, that's great, but if it don't work, you know, you don't have a sleeping bag, that's asking for trouble, especially a southern boy like me. I don't do cold well. Alright, I've rambled on long enough. This new camera, I don't even know how, I don't even see the thing on it. I'm still getting used to this. I hope the wind doesn't affect it, because I brought my cordless mic, but the batteries are almost dead, so it's kind of risky using it. So, here we go again, I'm rambling. Alright, let's take a look on the ground, and I'm going to dig around, and I'm going to show you real quick what I have in this pack that I've carried in. Alright, so let's take a peek at this pack right here and see what we've got here now. What I have is I have my bungee cords attached to it in case I need them with a strap. Okay, now that's to this main bag right here. Now, I have all these parts and pieces put together with these bungee cords. So let's go ahead and unsnap these two. This is something that I made. This is the bag for my fire reflector, and I've made these little clip-on things to where you can either undo this middle one and carry it over your shoulder, or I've got these spaced out enough to where they can be clipped onto a molly pack and carried that way. So I'm gonna dig that out in a minute. I have an axe in case I need to split some wood, because everything's pretty wet. I don't know how well it's gonna work. I have a grabber blanket for just in case I need it. Hopefully I won't. Maybe I won't. And then this is, let's see, I'm gonna clip this on so I don't lose these coals. They are a cool olive drab color. Then in here, this is my homemade survival blanket. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this. The reason I chose this instead of a regular tarp is because I'm wanting to see, because this thing has reflective qualities, and I'm wanting to see how this thing is going to work when it's behind me and then I have a reflective part towards the fire. Okay, so I've got that, and that'll be the first thing I'm going to rig up. And then inside here in my bag, I got a whole bunch of odds and ends. I got some bungee cords. Let's see, that's my phone. I got a kit full of some stuff in here, a bunch of paracord and mini rope. And then I've got some large rope right here. I think I'm fixing to use this between them two trees. And then I brought my silky big boy to make the firewood a little bit quicker. And then here's another kit that's just full of like carabiners and bungees and things. So, oh, and this is my little homemade, this is a homemade camera mount. It's got a dovetail. I pulled the dovetail off of my main camera and put it on this one so I can get them low down shots. And I can aim this around however I need it. I thought y'all might find that interesting. So, let's tie this rope up. Let's tie the rope up between these trees and hang this shelter up. So the first order of business is I'm going to tie a rope to one tree, and then I'm going to feed these loops through and hang the blanket. Now, if anybody's wondering about this blanket, I made this blanket. And if I figure out how to make how to put a link down on more of this blanket, I'll put the link in. I never have figured out how to do it. But this thing, it's an olive drab fireproof canvas on one side, and on the other side it's a heavy duty woven reflective pattern, and it's got loops sewn all the way across. So what I'll do is I'll tie the rope to the tree, and then I'll just feed the rope through this. The beauty of this thing is it's so heavy duty, you don't even have to clean up the sticks or the rocks underneath it. Now, I have a backdrop and then a bottom part to lay on. Now, if I was going to actually spend the whole night, I would take the other blanket and put it up for a roof. The grabber space blanket, I would take it and some paracords and some carabiners, and I would come off of this and I would make a roof. But I'm not doing that. I'm just wanting to see what the fire reflector is going to do, how warm it can be. I think that's just going to work just fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some saplings, and I'm going to dig out this thing right here and let you see it. I never go anywhere without my machete and my knife. Can't leave home without it. And that's what makes this stuff so much fun. is using actually using the machete. So I got 5 saplings, and what I'm going to do is sharpen the ends of them. So you just sharpen the ends of them like that right there and then beat them into the ground. I'll pick a place right in front of my shelter and stab it in. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first one and I'm going to stab it in the ground directly across from my shelter. I think the ground's actually frozen. Alright, so now let's take a peek at this thing right here. Alright. Woodland camo bag. Got a cord lock with paracord up on top to seal it up. And I showed you earlier the little snaps that I made for it. So let's pull this jewel out. Now this thing is like 11 feet long. See if I can get it out. It's 11 feet long, and I can't remember how tall it is. From the ground up, it comes up to my waist. And what it is, on one side, it's reflective camo. .11 feet. And on the other side, it's some stuff called Marvel shield. I think it's, no, Marvel seal. It's a reflective material. Now what this material is for, is it's for making packaging. And what you do is you put it together and you layer it and you take an iron, heat it up to 350 degrees, and it seals itself together. So if I don't get it above 350 degrees, I should be okay. So, and this is a waterproof type material. So if I had to, I could use this as part of a shelter, but I'm using it as a fire deflector. Now, ever so often, I've put in these little loops with paracord. I've got 5 of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie them to the pieces I've stabbed in the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie the middle up. Now you can see when I've folded in half, that's touching the ground. It comes up to my nose, so it's double that length. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to space some more of these. I'm going to space some more of these things out. And this is going to be my reflector, almost like my own little fort. Now there'll be gaps on the sides because this is all the material I had, and I could only make it 11 feet. Now, normally I would try to take into consideration which way the wind is blowing, but for some bizarre reason, well, actually for some common reason, the wind is blowing in almost all directions. So, you know, I'm just having to try to put it up and hope that it'll hope that the fire will you know, be the wind will be deflected from it. Looks good to me. I got a nice curved shape now around my shelter. I'll get the camera back behind it so you can kind of see it. Man, this tripod's got the fluid drive, and it is so slow when it's cold. But you can see I've got a nice curved part to it. Now what I'm going to do is I could have a big huge roaring fire, but I'm going to clear a spot out right in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a fire, and it's not going to be huge. I'm going to make it just enough to where I can see how well this thing is going to work. You know, because I mean anybody can heat with a huge fire, but I'm going to try to have a small fire, and I'm going to see how it contains the heat. Now as I'm walking around and I can feel the wind and I can hear the wind blowing. And when I come inside here, you can actually hear a difference in the wind because it's blocked off. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start the fire. Let's just throw some stuff right in there. A few odds and ends here. Now what I'm going to do is take these gloves off. I have some cattail fluff. So I'm gonna fluff it up all down inside here. Because this stuff's just gonna burst up into flames like you wouldn't believe. Because it always does. And then I think I'm gonna try to round up, I need some pine straw to set on top of it. This stuff just goes up like gas. It's unbelievable. All right, now half the fluff is going around everywhere. Now I have another cattail in case this fails. Hopefully it won't. But what I'm gonna do, I got a pile of sticks right here that I'm gonna start sitting on top of it. Once I get the leaves ignited. Now I hope everything doesn't burn up too fast. I think I got a ferro rod in here. This has got some of my odds and ends. Oh yeah, and I got a couple of thermometers. I'm gonna put one outside the shelter and one inside the shelter. I got some cotton balls for in case they don't get it going. I have a lighter and a ferro rod. So let's go with a ferro rod and see what happens. Now I'm gonna have to move fast. All right. As long as I got a little bit of flames, I'll let it come up through this. Now see, they're already traveling up. That's what you got to kind of do, is give it a little bit of room and a little bit of air. Alright, after several minutes of blowing on the fire, I finally got the core of the fire to breathe to life. Ooh, that thing's already hot. All that snapping and popping you can hear by the moisture in the wood. Anytime you have like splits like that, you want them up in the top and the center of the fire. Whew, it's already getting hot. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I got some temperature gauges around here somewhere. Oh, here they are behind me. I'm glad I didn't crush them. Alright, let's see. And I got a couple of hooks to hang them. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have here. I just pulled them out of the bag and they're saying, wait a minute, my hand was in front of the camera. 40 degrees. I don't know if you can see that or not. 42 or 43 degrees Fahrenheit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of them, let's see, I'm going to put, I don't know, I'll put one, I'll hang one over here on the shelter behind me, and then I'm going to hang one on the outside to see what it does. Alright, so I got a pretty good fire going in there, and one of the things that I had noticed about this was the wind. Okay, let's see. If I can get this fluid drive to ease up a little bit. Okay, there's a back wall of the shelter right there, and I've got my thermometer right there. Now over here at this tree, behind it, I've got another temperature gauge. So I don't want it in the sun. Of course, there ain't much sun today. Now I've got the fire going, and I noticed that opening over there, the wind was blowing through bad, and it was blowing the fire. It was blowing the fire over against this side, which isn't good. But I got a pretty good fire going in there now. Now if you had to, you could probably rig you up something out of a bunch of space blankets, but it would be very expensive. And these things here, this is 11 feet, and you know, I could make it even longer. So let's go over here, get a different view of it. I'm gonna go over here behind it. All right, so there's another view of it. Dang. It already feels warm in there. Alright. So, I think I'm fixing to go in there. Let's kind of ease around a little bit. Here's the back side of it. It's just like a little fort. Really a cool idea. Alright, so go around here. Take a look at this thermometer. It's like 44 degrees. 44 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not quite at the 50 mark. 48 maybe. Yeah, 46 to 48. Alright, so let's go over here and take a look. And then I'm going to sit in it and see how I feel. Let's go over here and take a peek. Now this temperature gauge is just on the back wall here. The whole area feels warm. It's almost, it's above 70. Can you see that? It's above 70 degrees. That's awesome. It was almost at 80 when I pulled it out of the shelter. So let's hang it back on here. And that is not a big fire. I'm gonna put a couple of pieces of wood on here, and then I'm gonna sit in here for a while and just see how it feels to me. Alright, so I'm going to put a little, woo, I can feel it, I can feel it. I can definitely feel it. Let's see. Let's get some of this wood up here. It's not a huge fire. Now, if it was, if I was staying here longer, if I was going to spend the night, I'd be sawing some really huge logs. Man, it's already warm in here. Woo. Man, it's warm in here. And smoky. I can move this on. Alright. Take this stuff off. I think I'm going to give you an overview again from a distance of it before I go back in there. I'll let that wood get caught on good. Because see, as soon as I came out of there, I got cold. Now you can see from a distance what it looks like. The back of it is a woodland camo. Now if I can get some more material, what I may just do, I may make another one, you know. And the cool thing about this is, if you look at this, is this setup here is you've got a tree right there, all right, and then you've got a tree right there, and then you've got a tree right there, and then there's several more behind it. So if you wanted to, you could go up maybe 8 feet and tie some ropes and tie a tarp up over there, and it'd have a roof. And then that way you'd have about a 2-foot gap all the way around that the wind could cut across and carry the smoke away. but then you'd have heat down inside the shelter just bouncing off all the walls. So, you know, this is a first time experiment with this, and I feel like it could be, it's got great promise. There's no doubt about that. It's going to work. Now here's you a view that you can really tell the difference in it. The woodland camo looks so much nicer than that space blanket. You know, and not to mention that is double wall because it is reflective plus the fabric. So it's more of an effective wind stopper than just a thin piece like that. We'll go around here and I'm going to take a look at the back side of it, and then we'll go inside there and I'm going to sit there for a while and see how I feel. Now here's a back view. You can see where I've got my heavy duty blanket there. And so like I said, the intentions is to have the back wall blocking the heat, the wind, and reflecting the heat off, and then it's got a place where I can lay on it, and then the other wall, but the wind kept coming in from this side. So thankfully I brought that space blanket. Now could you imagine with this setup, if I don't get any more of that Marvel seal material, I could just bring another blanket and tie it off right there, and it'd be kind of like a door. And I may do that. If the temperature drops down lower in the next few weeks, I may come back out and do another experiment with it. Here's another shot of the back side of it. So you can see that this is the only opening. It's a pretty big opening. And with as small as the fire is, I probably could have very easily have made the opening smaller. But this is the very, very first time I ever set it up. I just got through finishing sewing that thing recently. So let's go inside and I'm just going to sit there. I'm going to take this jacket liner off and see how it feels. See, I'm not used to this new camera because you can flip the viewfinder around. And I'm used to having the viewfinder behind it with a mirror behind it, so whatever I see is what's being filmed. But when you look in the viewfinder, it's the opposite of what you're filming. Alright, so let's move that over. Alright, so let's sit down. Let's take one more look at this. $80 degrees. I'm gonna try to jump up. I'm gonna try to jump up and run the camera over to you, so that you can see what I see. Do you see what I see? All right, here you go. Oh no, now I can't see in the viewfinder. I gotta flip it around. Now it's 70 degrees. 67. Well, it was 70. See, it's already dropping from the wind temperature. Whew! No, it wasn't 80, it was 70. But 70 ain't bad because it was, let's see, it's over here. 44. 44, 45. So having a shelter with a fire that size, maybe 46. Having a shelter that size and having this thing on the back wall, and having this thing on the back wall here reading 70 degrees, that's pretty good. Now see, as soon as I stepped outside, I didn't have on my base layer, my jacket liner, and I didn't have on my anorak. And as soon as I stepped outside, I started feeling very cold. And as soon as I came in here, I'm super warm. This is so warm. None of the air in here is cold. Every bit of this is warm. Oh, woo! Oh, I wished you was here. I wished you was here. Right here. The air is perfectly warm. But when I do that, it is so cold. Oh, man. That makes me so happy. That is wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That makes me... Now, this is absolutely mind-boggling. This is better than the thermometers. This is way better than testing it with the thermometers, because if you get a temperature gauge too close to the fire, it's going to make a massive difference. But I've got it on the back wall, and this was like anywhere from, I don't know, 46 degrees maybe It was like 31 when I first came out here earlier. But it's like 46 degrees over there, and that is above 70, and it's on the back wall. The biggest test that shocks me is when I'm in there and I'm feeling all around the reflective material and it feels warm. I can feel the warmth. My hands are very sensitive and I feel the warmth. And then when I raise them above the wall, the air is so cold. I'm very surprised. I am very, very surprised. I didn't know. I understand the reflective qualities of materials, but I had no idea what a wind blocker this was going to be. Every bit of this air is warm. God, it's amazing. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe. This is one of the most successful experiments I think I've ever done. Now, if you want to, you could get you a bunch of these space blankets here and set them up in a row like this and test it for yourself on a really cold day. The air has to feel, when you reach your hands up, the air has to feel really cold. Now, I wished I would have came out here the other day when it was 28 degrees, but the winds were gusting up to 40 miles an hour. That's just too cold. I can't do that. That's dangerous, especially with all the rain we've been having. But I'm dumbfounded. I'm shocked. I am literally shocked. I cannot believe this. Man. Love my portable firewall. Wait a minute, firewall something to do with a computer. Fire reflector, is that better? Oh man, this is great. If you get a chance to ever set anything up like this, just do it. I had fun. I hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. I hope you get out and experiment, you know. Play with this reflective quality stuff. This is really cool. Oh, and if anybody asks me where I got this Marvell seal from, a friend of mine gave it to me. Okay, he works at he works at a power plant. And they had a giant steam valve that came in, and it was wrapped in this stuff. And he thought of me. So when they went to unwrap it, now I don't know why it was wrapped in it. I guess because it was a valve that had delicate electronics controlling it. It was an automated valve. And so he cut this off and gave it to me, and I cut it and sewed it all into pieces and sewed the woodland camo fabric on it. Now I got what I've got. Now I'm very, very, very cold. This wind blowing on my back while I'm standing outside the shelter is terrible. It is so cold. So I'm going to hang out in here for a little while, and I got a thermos with some coffee because I knew I wouldn't have time to fool with actually making coffee. So I'm just going to sit around for a little while. Then when the fire dies down, I guess I got to tear it all down and go because I got to work tonight. Lucky me. Work calls. So enough rambling. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. Hope you want to get out and enjoy life. You know, there's too many people in the world that spend 7 days a week in front of the computer. The only time you should be in front of the computer is when you're watching YouTube. Doesn't matter if it's me or some of the other cool YouTubers. There's plenty of us on YouTube for you to enjoy. I shall see you in the next one.